this again. All right, guys, I'm back. The last time I tried to go on, my phone was acting up. So if you can please let me know if you can hear me. If you hear me, give me a thumbs up. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Perfecto. Thank you, cuz. All right. So I'm just gonna let the people funnel back in because I just have my own little 2 cents that I would like to speak on this issue. Thank you, Francis. Speak on this issue. I saw it circulating. It's been circulating for about like 2 weeks. And I didn't want to just jump in and speak, but I do have things that I want to say. So if you are watching this live today, thank you, Kendi. If you're watching this live, I ask you to hit the share button. It's a very heavy topic this evening, so, and just like my live said, I'm calling all Liberians to the stand. Just gonna wait for a few more people to funnel in, and then I'm gonna get started. And I thank you guys for tuning back in, even after my last live. So go ahead and hit that share button. Let your people know that I'm here, and this is an issue that I had to speak on. I couldn't keep quiet. Before I get started, I do want to read you guys some statistics, just so you can get the reality of the situation at hand. And first I'm going to start with statistics in the US because that's where I am based, and then I'm going to take you to statistics in Liberia. According to the National Center for Victims of Crime, 1 in 5 girls and 1 in 20 boys are a victim of sexual abuse. 20% of adults, females, and 5 to 10% of adult males recall a childhood sexual assault or sexual abuse incident. During a 1-year period in the United States, 16% of youth ages 14 to 17 had been sexually victimized. Over the course of a lifetime, 28% of US youth had been sexually victimized. In 2003, the National Institute of Justice reported that 3 out of 4 adolescents who had been sexually assaulted were victimized by someone who they knew well. A child who is the victim of prolonged sexual abuse usually develops low self-esteem, feelings of worthlessness, and an abnormal or distorted view of sex. The child may become withdrawn and mistrustful of adults and can become suicidal. Now I want to take you to statistics when it comes to Liberia. According to The Independent, 3/4 of women in Liberia have been raped. In 2015, out of 800 reported cases of rape, only 34 convictions were made for the crime. And 90% of those survivors were children. According to the UN mission in Liberia, rape has become the 2nd most reported serious crime in the country. And according to the World Health Organization, between 61% and 77% of all women and girls in Liberia were raped during the time of our civil war. Just want those statistics to sink in. And the reason I wanted to sink in is because this is a situation that is ongoing. This is a situation that occurs, and this is a situation that more light has to be shined on, and it has to be taken seriously. When I read the statistic that 800 cases of rape were reported in Liberia in 2015, and out of those 800 cases, only 34 were convicted of the crime, it tells us something. Now let's go to the incident of the More Than Me Foundation. ProPublica released a documentary on the Katie Myler's foundation, and I read the documentary, and I watched the documentary, and I read the article as well, and I just had to, let it digest before even deciding to talk about it. So for the More Than Me Foundation, if you haven't already watched the documentary, Katie Myler, I can't say her name right now, but she had an organization that she started in Liberia around 2013. And since then, it's become world renowned, and has gained millions of dollars in support by rich, wealthy people to help push forward her initiative. She first went into Liberia as when she was in college for a trip for a church, and then she decided to go back and establish the foundation, which was supposed to take vulnerable girls from off of the street and give them opportunities when it comes to education and healthcare and all those other things that they didn't have. So during the time of the foundation, girls were gathered who were vulnerable to sexual assault, and it was supposed to be a safe haven for those girls. However, over the course of time, it became less than a safe haven, as one of the staff members, known as McIntosh, was reportedly sexually abusing and raping multiple girls. Now these girls were young children, and he basically, took advantage of that. Now, the things that I saw alarming when it came to the documentary was, number one, I felt as though everyone on the board should be held accountable. Why? Because if that were to happen in the United States of America, everyone would be going through a thorough investigation, and I feel that should be the same way back home. For everyone on the board who had notions or hints or clues that might have been going on and nobody looked into it, or did look into it and swept it under the rug because of the so-called Liberia being a place where it happens, everyone should be held accountable. My question is, I want to know, where was the vetting system? Where was the vetting system in play? If you're going to have an organization and you're going to have people around children, where are the background checks? From my knowledge, the owner of the organization was aware that McIntosh was he formerly fought in the Civil War. And with the Civil War happening in our country, there has been, a big history of rape going on during our Civil War. So why wasn't he evaluated, number one, for psych evaluation, and number two, vetted, as in giving him a background check? Now, also during the documentary, I saw that there were several indications and hints that McIntosh may have been doing foul play with the girls, and people were aware, but again, didn't say anything for fear of either losing their jobs or for fear of not being heard, since Katie was, I guess, dating McIntosh at the time. The incident where there were sleepovers at McIntosh house with the girls, to me, was alarming. And also the nurse being told, I remember in the documentary, the nurse said that, one of the students, there were students that she became aware of the situation when there were students that were coming in with sexually transmitted diseases, and they were like young girls, 12, under the age of 11, and having these sexual transmitted diseases. And she said that she asked one of the students, are you sexually active? And the little girl was afraid to answer, and then the nurse went ahead and said, who? And the girl told her that it was by McIntosh. And the nurse said that she did not say anything for fear of losing her job. Also, staff being aware of what was going on, but saying nothing because, again, fear of McIntosh's relationship with Katie. And then another thing that I saw that alarmed me was they said that Katie was taking the children to pool parties after hours. So a lot of these things all together were alarming to me when I watched the documentary. And it's just my feel that, like I said, I'm glad that they have reopened the case and people are under investigation, or they're going to, go through investigation. Katie right now has stepped down, not resigned, but stepped down for the remainder of the investigation as from CEO of the organization. Another thing in the documentary that I did see was that during the time when McIntosh was in jail, Katie had active communications with him. And when it came time to go on trial, for McIntosh to go on trial for his crimes, not one person from the organization sat in the trial. So it was basically the word of the young girls versus McIntosh. And the jury was almost a hung jury with 8-4. So yeah, he could have, left a free man, but he ended up dying in his jail cell. So this issue to me is beyond disheartening, is beyond sad when it comes to, children in our country, our young girls being rape being the second most reported crime in our country, and young girls having to go through this on a daily or basis, and coming to a safe haven where they felt that they could be protected and not receiving that type of protection. And then the girls that step forward feeling like they might have lost their place in the school. Another thing that I saw that was very alarming to me was that out of all the girls that were in the school, the only ones who were tested for diseases were the ones who stepped forward. The only ones the organization, tested were the ones who decided to step forward. And again, I feel like that is wrong, because if you have allegations of something happening to one child or two children, check all of them. Make sure they're fine and make sure they're straight. So I feel like Liberia, right now, I think, yes, the organization needs to be held accountable. Katie needs to be held accountable. Everyone on the board should be held accountable. But what we need to do as well is check into this African mentality, this Liberian mentality. It's not just a Liberian issue, but it's an issue that I feel like is in Africa as a whole. We have this thing where it's a savior complex outside of ourselves. We look at foreigners or other people who come into the country and bring us, whether it be loans, money, school, or this or that, and we put them on a pedestal. While there are organizations or people who are trying to do the same thing within your country, but not given the same type of attention or not given the same type of funding. And I think that's an issue. I think the more that we rely on outside sources to come and fix our problems will never be fixed as a whole. I think it is up to us to support initiatives by people who are from where we're from and give them that encouragement so that they feel the need to continue to push forward in what they're doing. So that's something I want to say as well. We love people who are coming from the outside, and we look to them as saviors. And as long as we do that, Liberia is never going to grow. Africa as a whole is never going to grow. The next thing that I want to do is talk about accountability. And the reason why I said accountability is because when it comes to the issue of this whole rape case, yes, this thing happened at the More Than Me Foundation. But the person who did the crime was a Liberian man at the end of the day. And that's why I started with the statistics. And if this is something that is occurring within our country and feels like or looks like it's accepted, if we don't treat or we don't respect our women and our girls within where we're from, how do we expect others to protect us? If we do not get the respect and the love and the protection from our Liberian men, who do we expect to protect us? The measure of any society is in the way it treats its women and girls. Women are the bedrock of society, and I don't care how up or down you go, that's just how it's going to be. These women are the ones who are supposed to be the nurturers, the lovers, the sharers, the givers, you know? And if you hurt a young woman when she is young, you take away her chances. You take away her chances to be a phenomenal woman when she grows up, because there are so many women who suffer with the effects of sexual abuse. And many of these women don't get the opportunities that are here in the United States. With everything that goes on here as well, with children under sexual abuse and all the trauma that they have to go through, think about it happening in a third world country, where you put that on top of not having resources to education, not having resources to healthcare, not having resources to economic development. How do we expect the countries to grow? Now, the reason why this is so important to me, because we want to hold people accountable, right? We want to say that More Than Me Foundation needs to be held accountable. Everyone on the board should be held accountable. But what happens when it's your sister? What happens when it's your daughter who comes to you and tells you that she has been sexually abused by someone in your family? What then? Does the perpetrator get away because of protection or the family name, or does the perpetrator get punished for their crime? Again, this issue was very important to me because, and I didn't want to just talk about it, but I wanted to come and speak on it because for me, when I was 3 years old, that was the first time I was ever sexually abused. I would then go on to be abused sexually up until I was about the age of 7 or 8 years old. Now, I was not raped, but I was molested by multiple individuals who I thought I could trust as a little girl. Now, for me, I was lucky to have a mother who I could go to and tell her what happened, and my mother backed me, or my mother seek out protection for me or try to get justice for me. Not everybody is that lucky. And I remember when this situation took place and I spoke out as a little girl, and I expected for the matriarchs in my family to protect me. I remember hearing the eldest matriarch in my family saying, well, nobody told you to be around the boys. You look for it. How do you open up your mouth to tell a 7-year-old child that? And to this day, I can hear that replaying in my mind. And when I talk to other women who have gone through the same thing, I kind of hear a familiar story. They got an incident that happened to them very, very young. They spoke on it and nothing happened. Now, this is in the United States of America. So think about back home where people could just walk by each other freely. I remember a relative sharing her story with me and telling me when she was living in Liberia, when she was a child, she got molested by a neighbor. She ran home and she told her grandmother, and her grandmother said, well, nobody told you to go in a man's yard. You look for it. And these words from the women or the men in our family who are supposed to be protecting us, and nobody is doing anything or nobody does anything. It just says that it's okay, and it makes it a cultural acceptance. That is not okay. Do you understand the damages that has on a woman's mental? Do you understand the damages that has on a child growing up sexually? Like, do you understand the major psychological damages that can have to an individual? But when it comes down to it, we tend to love our boys and raise our girls. So it's always the woman's fault for a sexual assault, even when she's a child. So again, I say, if you're gonna hold Katie responsible, if you're gonna hold more than me responsible, hold your brother, hold your uncle, hold your father, hold any man that you know has sexually assaulted a young woman, or a child, and stop sweeping the issue of rape and child molestation under the rug. Because again, that is why it continues to happen and it continues to be the norm. Reading statistics on this issue is very alarming and disturbing, because it's not like it happens to a child by a stranger. It happens to a child by someone that they know. So I just had to give my 2 cents tonight. Thankfully for me, I have been able to go through my life. And yes, what happened to me in my past did affect me growing up. But I reached to a place where to even talk or sit here and tell you guys that's a lot, because not even everybody in my family is aware of that. And that's not something that I go about talking. But I understand that this is an important issue. And I understand that a strong figure like me, who is always using her voice, needs to speak up on this issue. Because it happened to me. And who would have thought? But a woman can get past that traumatic past if she is given the right tools and the opportunity to grow from it. But if she is still kept in the same environment, or an environment where she has no hope, it's tough. So I just had to share my input on that issue. So again, I say, yep, let the whole board be held accountable. And let's say they do shut the schools down. What then now? I believe that Liberians need to step up. Like we as a whole cannot continue to just complain and speak on things that we wish to be different within our nation, and we're all sitting here in the U.S. comfortably in our AC, in our electricity, and our, you know, with this, not saying everybody has a silver spoon, but we can't just be sitting here and talking on issues back home if we're not doing initiatives. If everybody's just talking about the problem and nobody is bringing solutions to the problem, it will continue to occur. So if you guys have, if anyone watching has anything to say or would like to call in or, you know, talk about the situation, feel free to let me know. I'll bring you on, but I'm gonna go through these comments really quickly. Francis says we love outside people. Yep. Let's see. Amma says, you got this. Ethiopia just banned foreign adoption. Laws and policies need to be implicated, for the white savior complex will continue to take advantage of innocent people. Absolutely. Amma also says the Liberian government needs to be held accountable for having such loose laws for charities and organizations. These pictures and videos of some of these kids ain't taken with permission. As a country, we need better systems in place to protect the vulnerable. But Pooh says, I said the same thing on this case. We gotta keep the same energy when it's our brothers, uncles, nephews, and relatives, or we ain't going nowhere. Absolutely. Agassi says Liberia's #1 billion challenge. Contact for details. Kennedy, Andre. I am Haitian, and I am proud of you, Sambi. You are a strong woman, and all the victims should come forth and tell to ring the alarm. Thank you, Kennedy. Amma says that part, it's always the woman's fault for being raped, even when she's a child. Yep, unfortunately true. Kennedy says, my love for Liberians is growing every day, and I'll pray for you all. Thank you, Kennedy. Adam says, it's not only about Liberians being accountable, but they need to love themselves and not allow foreigners to come and do what they want. Adam, you're absolutely right. We continue to let other people in and step all over us and put them on a high pedestal and spit on our own people. And again, we will always feel the fire for that if we continue to allow that to happen. But yes, you guys, I just want to say thank you for tuning in and listening. What is this? Oh, I don't know what this is. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I didn't want to stay quiet on the topic because, like I said, I have experienced sexual abuse as a child, and is something that's very difficult to heal from. And my sympathy, and I stand in solidarity with all the girls in Liberia who have gone through this. No child deserves to get her innocence taken from her at a young age without any type of consent. We're supposed to be protecting our babies. We have a responsibility as family members, as a country, as lawmakers. Everyone has to be held accountable. Not everyone is able to rise above and conquer their story. Not everyone is brave enough to speak on their story. And for those girls who don't have a voice, I just wanted to be a voice today. So I hope that you all keep that same energy, and I hope that you all not just, listen to this today or listen to the story and it be another story in the Liberian community that within a week everybody forgets and goes to the next thing. But all I am is a mirror, and all I hope to do with my platform is hold up a mirror to our society in different aspects. So it's up to us to make changes, and if we don't, we can't complain. So maybe there are organizations out there that are in our country, Liberia, that are actively doing things on the ground. We need to connect. We need to start building a bridge. Us that are here in the U.S., we need to start building a bridge back to Liberia. We have this age of social media now where we can post and we can share and we can watch each other from miles and miles and miles away. And that's the beauty of it. And it should be a tool to connect us in real life, not just online. And so I do love you all, and I thank you for tuning in today. Who says, thank you for being brave enough. I encountered my sexual assault right here in America when I was in high school by a Ghanaian man who was my best friend's father. And when I wanted to call the cops, my aunt said, I will handle it. And just like that, nothing was done about it. Lapu, you're brave, and thank you for sharing your story. And unfortunately, that's how the story goes for so many young girls. And one by one, we have to change that narrative. One by one, we have to hold everyone accountable. Again, thank you all for watching. That is all I have to say for tonight. So it's more than me, more than you. It is us. We all have to be held accountable for this situation. Until next time, peace, love, and light. Make sure you share this message with your people. Have a good evening.